The One Piece world of Blue Star is characterized by its several and unique races, each with their own unique traits, making them fascinatingly different and varied. However, with about 15 different races, over 20 different types of known race hybrids, and even special cases of some uniquely created races, it can be difficult to keep track of all the races in this world. So here we will tackle every single currently known race, including their traits, cultures, and unique properties. Sit down and get comfortable for this biology lesson. The planet Blue Star is populated by a series of different hominid races, what are usually referred to as Zoku. As an example, Ningen Zoku, or human race. This term is often mistranslated as tribe, but the most accurate translation in this context would be race. Because there are different intelligent races in the world, it is preferred to use the terms such as people, hito, or mankind, jinri, rather than humans or humanity when encompassing all races. Most hominid races share the common trait of being bipedal and having large brains, allowing them an advanced ability to not only develop tools to the extent of highly advanced technology, but also the ability to question and wish to learn more about how the world as a whole works. Individuals of all races are further categorized as physically male or female, or karada wa otoko or karada wa onna, and mentally as either man or woman, kokoro wa otoko or kokoro wa onna. Now in some cases, the gender of the brain can differ from the physical sex of the body in what are referred to as okama, translated as queer, a phenomenon that manifests in all races. Additionally, non-binary okama, such as Mr. Tubonkure, who possess a brain with both male and female traits, do also exist. While most individuals are attracted to the opposite gender, some can also be attracted to the same gender or both, though offspring can only be done by two opposite sexes, where their child will be a result of their mixed genes. And despite the discrimination that some may harbor for other races, all hominid races can reproduce with each other as long as they are of the opposite physical sex, resulting in hybrid offsprings. As someone once said, love is free. All kinds of people additionally can have all sets of specific traits, such as being right-handed or left-handed, having special health conditions or mutations such as weak eyesight or multiple personalities among many others, or any other kinds of unique properties. All of these traits are uniquely found in all races. Many in the world believe that all other hominid races at present are an evolved form of humans, particularly given their seeming absence from depictions of the first world. But how they came to evolve, whether through a long natural process or bolstered by their technology of the first world, particularly through the application of the bloodline elements, or if there really were or were not there before, is still unclear. Similarly, any Delphoid user with the ability to evolve into a future potential for humanity is still fundamentally just a person with new genetic code that has evolved into a further evolved being. Delphoid users are also able to either generate completely unique new creatures thanks to their powers, such as the hollow ghosts of the Horo Horo no Mi, the inanimate objects turned through the Suru Suru no Mi into living creatures known as homies, or the Majin Genie that is created by the Hoya Hoya no Mi, as well as turn others into completely new unique races, such as the Centauros or centaurs created by the Ope Ope no Mi by fusing people together with animal parts, or people turned into toys, omocha, by the powers of the Hobi Hobi no Mi, as well as alter other traits of already existing living people, such as newkama being people who have transitioned their physical sex. Those who bear mechanical prosthesis can be called a cyborg, though they are still just their own race who are mechanically reinforced. These modifications, however, can be applied to a wider level, such as in the case of Bartholomew Kuma having his personality entirely killed off and most of his body replaced by mechanical parts to be turned into a fully commandable robot, despite still remaining a living creature. In the case of the children of the Vinsmoke family, these modifications were made since before their birth during conception, making them modified humans who developed cyborg bodies since birth, while also having their senses of emotion largely removed to be more obedient. Similarly with technology, humans or any race can be cloned, or in some cases even artificially generated, but these are fundamentally just identical copies or creations of other people, even if they can be made more rapidly aged. The Ningen, or humans when translated, are the biggest prevailing hominid race in the world. Evolved from the family of great apes, humans are characterized by their advanced intelligence due to large brains, which they share with all other hominid races. Humans can come in all shapes and sizes, As well, the average height is around of under 2 meters, humans can reach as high as around 9 meters, and their skin colors and other traits can also differ. Some humans have animal-like traits that make them more unique looking, though in some cases those could be the result of being hybrids, so it can be hard to distinguish where the line is drawn. At present, humans are by far the most populous hominid race in the world. This could be down to two factors. The other races may have evolved from smaller groups of humans and thus been outpaced by the already existing large humanity, and the fact that discrimination against other races by humans has been incredibly widespread for centuries, leading many of them close to extinction. As a result of their numbers, humans have always held strong political power across history, and particularly at present, they hold world hegemony through the world government, with the celestial dragons seemingly composed entirely by humans. Similarly, in canon, the Marines are also exclusively composed by humans, except for giants, who were recently recruited only for their extraordinary strength. Among the humans, the noble class of the world government, the celestial dragons or Kinokobito, like to consider themselves as a separate race. In spite of themselves believing to be gods detached from all other humans, from a scientific perspective they are just delusional humans who believe themselves better than anybody else. Among them, however, there are some who have gained demonic transformations akin to devil fruits, but with particular properties, with some of them even having been granted perennial youth, supposedly through the powers of the Ope Ope no Mi, even though most humans only seem to age at around 70 or 80 years old. These individuals, who some call Hell's Devils or Akuma, possess these unique properties, but these were simply abilities conferred to people who were born as humans. The Gyojin, or fishmen, when translated, officially romanized with a hyphen, are one of the two hominid races with fish traits. Their name is an inversion of the kanji for their partner race, merman or ningyo. Japanese doesn't gender this race, using the umbrella term Gyojin, which applies to all of them, but when translated into English, usually the term fishman is used for males and fishwoman, or alternatively fishmaids, is used for females, with fishmen or fishfolk being used to generalize both. Unlike merfolk, whose lower bodies are more fish-like while their upper sides are more human-like, fishfolk are the opposite. Their lower legs are often more human-like, whereas from the waist up they have more fish-like traits. Unlike most merfolk, fishfolk have skins of deep colors like those of fish. They also have traits resembling those fish, with every individual being a specific variation of an aquatic creature, though these can also include different animals such as octopi. An example would be Arlong being a saw shark fishman, which gives him purple skin, webbed hands, a dorsal fin, and saw nose like that of a saw shark. Additionally, he inherits other shark traits like being able to regrow his teeth. Their size can also largely vary based on their species, such as the 9-meter-tall giant grouper fishman Jack, or even the tiger blowfish fishman Wadatsumi, often being mistaken for a giant due to being 80 meters tall, even taller than an ancient giant despite the fact that he is just a fishman. All fishfolk have the ability to breathe both above water and underwater, and can generally swim quite fast. They're also able to communicate with other fishes, but unlike merfolk, they've generally had a perspective of dominance over other fish races, unlike merfolk who prefer to coexist with fishes. Fishmen are physically stronger than humans, with some claiming that they are on average the strength of 10 humans. But due to their small numbers compared to humans, they could not do much in the face of their overwhelming numbers, and were mostly driven out of the surface, forced to live on the dark sea floor. To put it into perspective, Fishman Island is the main settlement of almost all fishfolk and merfolk, and it only has a population of about 5 million inhabitants. The Ningyo, or mermen when translated, are one of the two hominid races with fish traits. Their name is the combination for the kanji for person and fish. Japanese doesn't gender their race, using the umbrella term Ningyo, but when translated into English, usually the term merman is used for males and merwoman for females, although mermaid has become much more widely adopted instead, with mermen or merfolk being used to generalize symbolize both. Unlike fishfolk, whose upper bodies are more fish-like, merfolk usually have upper bodies similar to those of humans, while their lower bodies usually have the tail of a fish. Some merfolk do have colored skin more similar to that of a fish man, but most of them have skin more similar to that of humans, being nearly identical above the waist. Each individual belongs to a specific species of an aquatic creature, and in particular cases like that of a seahorse or an octopus, their lower bodies change accordingly. While an octopus fishman may grow several additional arms, an octopus merman will grow tentacles for legs, such as Big Mom's half-human daughter Charlotte Prim. They also possess the same ability to talk to fish and breathe underwater that fishfolk do, and in fact are considered to be the fastest creature in the sea. Like fishfolk, they can widely differ in size based on species, such as Shirahoshi being 12 meters tall with her tail fully extended. Fishfolk and merfolk can reproduce together without creating hybrids, as their races are directly compatible, with their children having a 50% chance of being born as fishfolk or merfolk. Genetics are also passed down lineage, as someone who has had a shark fishman ancestor may end up giving birth to a shark fishman, but the genetic pool is so large that a child may be born from any type of ancestor aquatic species. To enable reproduction, a mermaid's tail ends up splitting in half when they reach the age of 30, turning their fins into a more foot-like shape and allowing them to walk on land, as well as able to bear children at that point. Both fishfolk and merfolk can also reproduce with other races, though that will result in hybrids. The Tenshi, or angels when translated, are a hominid race fairly similar to humans, except they possess wings on their back. Though they usually refer to themselves with local names to each of their respective people, humans often refer to them by the name of angels. At least in present, the wings that they bear, though very much biologically real, are large enough to allow them to fly. There are fundamentally three known sub-races of angels, who are more commonly known by the countries they reside in: Skypiea, Shandora, and Burka, each having slightly different traits. The people of Skypiea, who locally refer to themselves as Sora no Mono, translated as Skyfolk, are the residents of the Skypiea godland found atop an Emperor Nimbus cloud housing several sky islands. Physically, they are distinguished by having small wings, and culturally they are distinguished by their fashion, wearing a unique style of clothing and styling their hair in the shape of antennae, known as the Heavenly Natural Advertisement Balloon Hair, or head, tenado for short. Skyfolk have a unique culture in the sky that has detached itself a bit from the culture of the sea below, causing for quite the culture shock for those who visit, such as the expression belly button or hissel being used for greetings and thanks. Due to the lack of earth in the sky, they venerate the substance as an almost religious-like concept called Verth. Though we've also seen Skypiea angels with larger wings, such in the case of Uruj, who is depicted as being from Skypiea. The people of Shandora, who refer to themselves as Shandia, stylized as Shandians in English, also referred to as the Guerrilla by the people of Skypiea, are the residents of the golden city of Shandora, physically similar to the people of Skypiea, with short wings on their back that are almost identical. However, Shandians have a more tribalistic nature, with a set of traditions that extend to their clothing style, and the way they tattoo their bodies, and the way they fancy their hairstyles too. Having developed their civilization on the island of Jaya on the Blue Sea, the Shandians always had plenty of earth and built their culture around it. The people of Burka, who have not been directly referred to by a name but would supposedly be the Burka, or Burkans were stylized, are the residents of the former sky island of Burka, destroyed by Enel. Unlike Skyfolk or Shandians, their wings are larger and more curved, though still not big enough to fly. Some of their people, like Enel or Haridas, who had founded the artificial sky island with Area, do not have wings, though Enel's drums are most likely some form of grand piercing that likely to be a natural phenomenon. Some Burkans also have more distinguishing features, such as having a goat-like appearance. The people of Burka have been suggested to have been fairly technologically advanced compared to other people of the world, though certainly not as much as in ancient times, but ultimately their civilization was tragically almost entirely wiped out. In the past, seemingly around the Void Century though yet unclear, a group of Skyfolk, Shandians, and Burkans colonized the moon together, developing a city there also called Burka, until they were forced to leave due to a lack of resources, making life on the moon unfeasible. During this period, they were called Moon People, or Tsuki no Hito in Japanese, but this was just a descriptive name for those living there rather than a specific race. Some people mistakenly believe that angels somehow magically originated from the moon, despite the fact that we have been told, however, evolution works, and the fact that the angels claimed in the murals that life was simply not sustainable on the moon long term shortly after colonizing it, so it would have been impossible for them to just magically generate there. The Lunaria, or stylized as Lunarians when translated, are a race incredibly similar to that of angels, but evolved further, to the point they are considered as a separate race. Their name is derived from the word moon, as they were seemingly associated with the moon, though it's unknown if they have any connection with the moon people who lived there, as they were not depicted on the murals on the moon. Lunarians are similar to angels, but have some distinctive key traits. Their skin is a dark brown, while their faces all bear white hair and red eyes. These facial traits are identical to the depictions of the sun god Nika, as well as those affected by energy steroids or Longarmelegnecks. Furthermore, Lunarians have large black wings that are big enough to grant them flight, unlike other angels, and most importantly, they have an eternally burning flame on their back, which is similar in principle to the mother flame. This flame can be switched off at will, which will generally grant them higher speed, but when activated, it also makes their skin far more resistant to attacks. They are also generally much taller than other races on average. Due to being considered biologically improved over almost all other races, some believe the Lunaria may be angels who are enhanced through the bloodline elements, particularly given their built-in mother flames, but details are still unclear. Despite their overwhelming physical superiority, the Lunarians have gone almost entirely extinct, with Arbor being the only currently known survivor. Up to the Void Century, the Lunarians had a godland country found atop the Red Line, where Marijois currently is. The Mink, or stylized as Minks when translated, are a hominid race with features of furred animals. The word mink is a native word of their culture that means furred, using the kanji reading for fur. Similar to the fishfolk and merfolk, minks have traits of furred animals, with the main characteristic that they all have fur of some kind. And the specific animal they belong to gives them unique traits, such as a rabbit mink being quite agile, or a dog mink having a good sense of smell. The majority of them live in the Mokomo Dukedom found atop the moving island of Zo, seemingly having lost their original homeland, where they have lived in isolation of humans for a long time. They eat animals, but usually avoid furred animals who are similar to them. They have a unique dialect which involves things such as adding teia or gara to pronouns. Their culture is built on a sense of deep skinship, or minkship, which involves a lot of physical contact. Minks have a natural affinity to generate electricity through the static charges found in their fur, with which they are able to discharge small blasts onto others in a process that is known as electro. Similarly, minks have the unique ability to transform into a state known as Sulong, kanji reading moon lion, where their fur and hair turn white and their eyes red. This state is triggered by staring at a full moon and makes them incredibly powerful, but unless they have trained to control it, some risk going berserk and exerting themselves until they are so exhausted they die. The Kobito, or dwarves when translated, are a hominid race made of people of incredibly short stature. Their name more literally translates to little people, but is usually stylized with the word dwarf in English. Despite the use of this word, the race is more similar to traditional depictions of gnomes than those of dwarves. Among the dwarves, there is a race known as the Tontata race, or Tontatazoku, but it's not clear if the Tontata race is a specific sub-race of dwarves, similar to the Shandians being a sub-race of angels, or if it is simply a synonymous name for dwarves. Regardless, they are the only kind of dwarf we've seen. Tontatas are characterized by their incredibly short stature, particularly averaging around 20 centimeters tall. They have pointed noses and also possess fluffy tails, which have a very strong tailbone that makes them powerful weapons. Despite their stature, Tontatas are incredibly agile and strong, easily able to overpower some humans, to which they refer to as big people, an opposite of their name of little people. They also have a dialect that shortens the term desu to be into resu. The Tontata are native to Green Bit, where they live in the underground Tontata kingdom. They have a vast knowledge of gardening, allowing to turn any land they inhabit, no matter how arid, into a verdant paradise, which is how they turned the seemingly summer island of Dressrosa into a verdant land. Their people have long since been persecuted and even enslaved by the neighboring Don Quixote dynasty, particularly as they are characterized by being incredibly naive and gullible, easily deceived by others. Their name is likely derived from the Spanish word for gullible, tonto. Interestingly, they were mentioned as early as East Blue by Usopp and later mentioned by Noland as well. The The Kyojin, or giants when translated, with the kanji literally meaning giant people, are a hominid race known for being incredibly large, averaging around 20 meters in size. Though their heights varying considerably between individuals, giants are defined by being much larger than other races, towering over them and thus having far more superior strength on average. The biggest country of giants is the Warland Kingdom of Elbaf Island, known for its history of violent warriors, but other nations of giants that are known to be less aggressive also exist, though physically they don't seem to be much different. Their blood appears particularly powerful, as it seems to remain in hybrid races even some generations down the line. Giants also have the trait of living very long lives, though this concept is often misunderstood. They were said to mature at half the rate of humans, meaning a 20-year-old giant is the equivalent of a 10-year-old human, whereas a 60-year-old giant is like a 30-year-old human. However, their aging seems to plateau after about a century, where they begin aging much more slowly, and their ages tend to average up to 300 years. However, similar to centenarian humans, there have been rare cases of a giant living up to over 400 years. The Kodai Kyojin, or ancient giants when translated, are a race fairly similar to giants, that they are distinct enough that they are considered a different race. They are characterized by being far larger than giants, averaging around 60 meters in height, and having more demonic-like features such as large horns, sharp teeth, and colored skin. Their large height makes them even more powerful than giants, as during the era of war they had terrorized the world with their immense strength, particularly known being the story of Ors the Country Puller, often mistranslated as a continent puller, who was an ancient giant from the North Blue who built a nation by taking entire islands with him and was so feared by the world some believed him to be an incarnation of the devil. Like giants, they live for a long time, though it's unknown just how far compared to them. As such, while Ors died 500 years ago, his great-grandchild has survived to this day. Pure-blood ancient giants are considered largely extinct by now, though hybrids with their blood do remain. San Juan Wolf is often mistaken for an ancient giant due to his 180-meter size, but this is due to having eaten a Dell fruit, as he is a regular 18-meter tall giant. Dr. Vegapunk has experimented in recreating artificial ancient giants, which came to be known as the Numbers. After the incident on Punk Hazard, they fell under the control of Caesar, who sold them to Kaido to be part of his crew. The Tenaga, or Longarms when translated, are a hominid race that is distinguished by having longer arms. They look almost identical to humans except that they have longer arms, characterized by having two joints except of one, known as the friend bow or tomohizi and lover bow or koihizi, to represent at which arm's length one's relationship is. The Longarm race primarily lives on their settlement of Kinzan Island, translating to Mount Sword Island, in what is called the Tenagena Kingdom, which just translates as Arms Belong Kingdom. During the timescape, Brook was kidnapped by Longarms of Tenagena from the neighboring country of Harahetania and forced to perform. The Longarm race has been locked in a 1,000-year-long feud against the Longleg race that spans even further back than the Void Century. The Ashinaga, or Longlegs when translated, are a hominid race that is distinguished by having longer legs. They look almost the same as humans, except for having quite long legs, making them taller than most people. Unlike Longarms, these legs have a single knee, but their span is longer than that of the legs of humans. Longlegs have a tradition of being proud of their legs, for which they often expose them and decorate them with tattoos. Their homeland is unknown, but have similarly been in a feud with the Longarms for 1,000 years. The Jakubi, or Snakenecks when translated, are a hominid race that is distinguished by having long necks. Looking almost the same as humans, their defining trait is having necks that stretch out, though these can vary from little amount to incredibly long. In the case of a snakeneck being chubbier than slim, the neck will become equally as chubby as it is long, such as the case of the hybrid Charlotte Monde. Hangan, an ally of the Whitebeard pirates, was likely the first snakeneck to appear, and while his race has never been confirmed, it seems pretty evident by the shape of his neck. The three-eyed, or Mitsune in Japanese, are a hominid race that is distinguished by having 3 eyes. They are particularly identical to humans except they have a third eye on their forehead. Three-eyed have the special power of being able to hear the voice of all things, which makes them particularly valuable as they can hear the voices of poneglyphs. It's a race in grave degree of extinction as very few pure-blooded members of it remain. The Kinokobito, or mushroom men when translated, although it has been officially romanized as Kinokobito, are a unique race of mushroom-like people. Their defining trait is having bodies that resemble the shape of mushrooms, in addition to having 4 legs. They seem to be incredibly rare, as Big Mom captured a rare specimen in her library. The Kuja, or stylized as Kujas when translated, kanji literally meaning 9 snakes, are a hominid race that is only able to reproduce into females. The Kujas are almost physically identical to humans, except for the trait that they are only able to conceive female Kuja babies. As such, the race is technically a hybrid by default because they need other races to reproduce, since they cannot reproduce on their own. Culturally, the Kujas live exclusively on the Amazon Lily Empire found on Neogashima, translating to Woman Island, where they have developed a warrior-like race where strength is considered beauty and where skimpier, easier to wear clothing suited to their humid climate due to not having to worry about the gazes of men, as their presence is illegal in their country. Instead, young Kujas who have reached maturity will leave the island and go on a journey to find a suitor to seduce, who will leave them pregnant as they return to their home island to raise the baby on their own. Kujas are also trained on haki since youth and fight with bow-like snakes who remain their partner across their lives. Hangyojin, or half-fishmen when translated, are half-human, half-fishman hybrids. This hybrid race possesses traits from both sides, though the level to which traits manifest come down to genetics. In the cases of Sapi or Dalinger, only minor physical traits from their fishman lineage remained, looking more human-like with some minor traits like fangs. Whereas for Charlotte de Chat, he looks almost entirely like a fishman, possessing stronger fishman genes. Half-Ningyo, or Half-Mermen when translated, are half-human, half-merman hybrids. This hybrid race possesses traits from both sides, though in the case of Charlotte Prim and Charlotte Praline, they looked almost entirely like mermaids, so much like half-fishmen, the traits probably come down to genes. In the case of Chimney from Water 7, who is the child of a half-merman, Kokoro-son, and a human woman, she is 1/4 mermaid, or Yonbun no Ichiningyo. This makes her almost entirely human physically, but has the ability to swim much more efficiently than other humans thanks to her genes. The Watan, or stylized in English as Watans, are a hybrid race that is a fusion between a giant and a fishman. The name Watan may be a combination of water and titan. Watans retain aspects from both races. They retain their fishman traits by having characteristics unique to their type of aquatic species, which include colored skin and special properties like slippery skin as an example, while also having the titanic size of giants. Although in the case of Big Pan of the Foxy Pirate, the only Watan to appear in canon, he appeared considerably shorter than normal giants, being more around 10 meters or so in height. The Nazo no Kyojin, or mystery giants when translated, are a sub-race of giants known for having furred skin. Though the specifics of their race hasn't been fully confirmed, it is believed by many that they could likely be giant Ming hybrids because of their fur. Mystery giants are characterized by looking fairly similar to giants except having animal-like fur like that of the Minks, likely a hybrid union between the two. In the case of the Yeti-Cool brothers, who were prisoners from Punk Hazard turned into Caesar's henchmen, their white fur make them look like Yeti. In their case, at least, they were over 40 meters tall, seemingly being taller than normal giants. The Kyodai Kyojinzoku no Chiyohiki, or ancient giant blooded when translated, refers to giants who are either ancient giant hybrids or descendants of ancient giant hybrids. Though starting off as a direct hybrid between giants and ancient giants, their blood is so powerful that traits still manifest, even in generations down the line, that still possess ancient giant blood. Though pure-blooded ancient giants are believed to have gone extinct, those with blood still in their veins exist, manifesting through having horns and oftentimes being taller than other giants, though not always. King Harald of Elbaf had ancient giant blood, which made him taller than other giants and gave him horns, although he ripped them off. But in the case of his children, Loki and Hydrodin, their largely differing sizes seems to indicate that the strength of these genes may vary, particularly as the two have different mothers. The Buccaneers Buccaneer, or stylized as Buccaneers in English, refer to the hybrid race between giants and supposedly humans, as well as those descended from said hybrids. Buccaneers were said to have the blood of giants, supposedly as a hybrid result with humans, but their blood is so strong that even in later generations, when a Buccaneer would reproduce with a human, their child would still come out as a Buccaneer. In the case of Scopper-Gaban and Ripley's child, their kid Cullen came out as looking and aging like a normal giant, whereas a Buccaneer like Kuma came out more with the physical traits commonly associated with the race and aging more like a human. Buccaneers have the defining trait of being far larger than humans, in Kuma's case being almost 7 meters tall, as well as having bulky builds with large torsos that are able to much more efficiently take damage than other races can. The Buccaneers have been accused of committing a grave sin by the world government, for which they have been driven to near extinction as they are deemed to be allowed to only exist as slaves. This sin seems to tie in some form with the desire to become Nika, but how exactly it correlates is unknown. Buccaneers are also said to have a special unique trait, which seems to relate to the ability of being able to retain will even after death, as Kuma was able to retain the will of wishing to protect his daughter despite being technically considered dead and his body supposedly not being able to move anymore after it was skill switched in a vegetative state. The Oni, or stylized as Onis in English, is supposedly a race that might be the hybrid result of humans and ancient giants. Kaido referred to his son Yamato as the child of Oni, but it's not been fully clarified if this is a specific race or was simply used as a way to refer to themselves, particularly as it's not been elaborated upon in any material or their Vivre cards. However, given what we now know about ancient giant-blooded having horns and being larger due to their lineage, many have pondered if Oni might actually be half-human, half-ancient giant hybrids, which may be why Kaido and Yamato have horns and are also taller than the average human, despite there also being humans who are as tall as them, obviously. This could also potentially explain other horned individuals in the world. Though having no official name, there exist hybrids between a Lunarian and a human. The artificial hybrid surfing clone of Mihawk, as Hawk, was mixed with Lunarian bloodline elements derived from Arbor, making him look identical to Mihawk except with all the traits of a Lunarian. Though having no official name, there exist hybrids between a Lunarian and a Fishman. This was seen present in the artificial hybrid seraphim clone of Jinbe as Shark, which was mixed with Lunarian bloodline elements. This gives him the properties of a Lunarian while also being able to swim and supposedly breathe underwater like a Fishman, though having Delphoid abilities via green blood. Though having no official name, there exist hybrids between a Lunarian and a Kuja. This was seen present in the artificial hybrid seraphim clone of Hancock as Snake, which was mixed with Lunarian bloodline elements. These are the traits of Lunaria, and assuming that seraphim are capable of conception by adulthood, would supposedly only be able to birth female Kujas. Though having no official name, there also exist hybrids between a Lunarian and the already hybrid Buccaneers. This was seen present in the artificially hybrid seraphim clone of Kuma as Bear, which was mixed with Lunarian bloodline elements. According to the Vivre cards, this not only gives him Lunarian properties, but also the same build and strength of a Buccaneer, making his body more resistant to tanking attacks than either a Lunarian or even a Buccaneer, drawing on the tougher resistance from both races, which is why Luffy struggled to put a dent in S-Bear despite what many fans try to slander of him. Though having no official name, there exist hybrids between a human and a Longarm. They seem to retain an appearance practically identical to that of a Longarm as was seen in Big Mom's children, Charlotte Mobile, Marble, Mukuru, and Maple. Though in the case of the latter, Maple, her arms are so bulky that it's harder to spot the double joints. Though having no official name, there also exist hybrids between a human and a Longleg. They seem to retain an appearance practically identical to that of Longlegs, as was seen in Big Mom's children, Charlotte Smoothie, Citron, and Cinnamon, who take pride in their lineage by showing tattoos on their legs. Though having no official name, there also exist hybrids between a human and a Snakeneck. They seem to retain an appearance practically identical to that of Snakenecks, as was seen in Big Mom's children Charlotte Monde, Amand, Hache, and Efire, as well as Charlotte Mascarpone and Joscarpone, though the length of their necks varied. The Te Ashinaga Ningen, translated as Longarmleg Human, often mistranslated as Longlimb Human, would be a double hybrid between a Longarm, a Longleg, and a human. In Big Mom's library, she kept a rare specimen of a Longarmleg human who had both the traits of a long arm and a long leg. She referred to it as a human, though it's unclear if this was due to it being indeed a double hybrid or was just a way to refer to it. The Te Ashikubi Naga, translated as Longarmelegnecks, would be a double hybrid between a long arm, a long leg, and a snake neck. As mentioned by Skoppergaban as one of the hybrid races, its name suggests it's a combination between the three types of long races. The Dosundada, stylized as Dosundadas in English, is a hybrid race, supposedly between the Tontata and another race. As mentioned by Skoppergaban as one of the hybrid races, it's unknown what the Dosundadas belong to, but their name would suggest they are likely at least half Tontata, though unknown with which other species they are combined. The name Dosundada could be derived from the sound effect Dosun, which refers to something heavy. Though having no official name, there exist hybrids between a human and a dwarf. They seem to retain an appearance practically identical to that of a dwarf, potentially maybe a Tontata, including their fluffy tail, as was seen in Big Mom's child Charlotte Normand, the child of a clearly very brave father. In her case particularly, she seemed to have butterfly-like wings, which is unknown if it's due to a specific type of dwarf or just unique to her. The Half-Mitsume, translated as half-three-eyed, are hybrids between a human and a three-eyed. They seem to be fairly identical to a three-eyed, looking like a human with a third eye on their forehead. However, half-three-eyed need to awaken their eye in order to be able to hear the voices of all things, and it is not guaranteed that they will ever be able to. Big Mom was counting on awakening her eye in order to be able to read the poneglyphs, which is likely why Blackbeard later kidnapped her. What would supposedly be called a half-mink would supposedly be a mix between a human and a mink, though it's not been confirmed if any of them currently exist or have been provided any type of official name. It's possible Charlotte Melise may be a half-mink due to having reindeer-like antlers, but this hasn't been confirmed yet. Others have also speculated if animal-looking humans such as Moji, Mary, Nyornyarmani, or Mashiran Shoujo, among others, could be half-humans, half-minks, but again, none of this has yet been confirmed. The Karakuri Ningyo, not to be confused with Ningyo merfolk or Automata Dolls when translated, are an artificial race of angel-like androids that were created by the people of the moon. The people of the moon seemingly created this race of human-like robots to assist them in their moon civilization, but were forced to put them into hibernation once they had to leave the moon, where they slept until they were reawakened by Enel. Similarly, however, some blueprints for their creation had been discovered in the planet Blue Star below, as Dr. Tsukimi of Karakuri Island was able to reverse engineer them. Automata dolls are made in the image of angels, with wings on their back, but are generally of very small stature and all bearing a mustache, interestingly enough. Though they may not be biological, they have been programmed to feel and think like people. They are seemingly able to eat food but are powered by electricity. Similarly, the Iron Giant Emmet was an android created in much the same way as the Automata dolls, except made to be the size of a giant. Despite all that, there exist intelligent creatures who are seemingly not related to the hominids, despite having some hominid-like features that seemingly come from outer space, what some would consider extraterrestrial creatures or aliens. Some of them formed a faction known as the Space Pirates and were trying to extract resources from the moon. Their bodies and biology are far beyond anything science can even begin to understand, and leaves open the question of what really is that lies out there beyond this tiny world of ours.